Falcons, I think they land Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. Top 5 offensive line, nice pieces. I think they get a veteran in there for a couple of years, and Atlanta wins. Kind of a weak division.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So the Atlanta Falcons will probably win the division next season. They'll probably win the NFC South if they can just get the quarterback position right. Now, I say that out loud, and I realize that sounds ridiculous, but my point is this. Whether it's going to be Kirk Cousins, whether it's a Justin Fields trade, whether they select a QB at pick number 8 in the first round, this team is a quarterback away. And now I got Raheem Morris coming in as my head coach. I got Zach Robinson coming in as my offensive coordinator. The Atlanta Falcons have the best rushing duo in the National Football League. They've got playmaker after playmaker in Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They've got an extremely underrated defense that was ranked 11th in the National Football League this past season. They literally just need a competent quarterback, not named Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder. That is literally all they need. So I just saw Kirk Cousins being floated around there for the Atlanta Falcons. And folks, they would easily win the division if Kirk Cousins lands himself in the Atlanta Falcons locker room. So we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Falcons. We'll briefly mention a lot of these quarterbacks, draft, offseason, etc., etc. But before we get into today's video, if you guys enjoy it, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. We got a ton of Falcons videos coming out for you guys the entire offseason. Falcons fans, love you guys as always. If we try and get this video to 250 likes, that would mean the absolute world to me. So I think it was somebody with The Athletic, Sam Monson, saying they're a Kirk Cousins away from potentially contending in the NFC. Folks, not just winning the NFC South, but contending in the NFC in general. And I got to say, I completely agree. Kirk Cousins, we'll talk about it for a second here, because I think I was actually listening to The Herd earlier today, and he was like, yeah, they're going to get Kirk Cousins, they're going to get Russell Wilson, and they're going to win the division. And I'm thinking to myself, like, finally, somebody sees it. I hyped up the Atlanta Falcons 1 year ago a lot. Last offseason, we were making like, a couple Falcons videos every single week. I thought this team was easily going to win 10 football games. And then we learned very quickly on that Desmond Ridder just is not the answer. Desmond Ridder was not the answer. And so when I look at a guy like Kirk Cousins, who threw 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last season, I'm a diehard Packers fan. Everybody knows Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, one of the most respected players in the National Football League. He's a class act. He's just a very good quarterback talent. And so it's an interesting predicament because Atlanta's got some cap space and they have the 8th pick. They've got $30 million in cap space. They still need definitely some help at the wide receiver position. Drake London is a beast. Kind of hard to look at any receiving stat for any receiver on the Atlanta Falcons last season because of Ridder and because of Heineke. Not trying to go at those players, but hopefully you guys get what I'm saying here. So I got $30 million in cap space. They'll probably pick up somebody in free agency at the wide receiver position. We'll talk about the draft a little bit later on, but Kirk Cousins would join Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith if they bring him back. So it's like you give Kirk Cousins. And first off, and by the way, the Falcons have a top 5 offensive line. That's what a lot of people don't seem to fully understand outside of Falcons fans, is the Atlanta Falcons offensive line is loaded, folks. So if you get a Kirk Cousins, you're winning the NFC South, barring a significant injury to Kirk, which he dealt with this past season. But, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. The year before it, 29 touchdowns, 4,500 yards. The year before that, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Like, Kirk Cousins, just a very, in general, underappreciated quarterback in the National Football League. So if he joins the Atlanta Falcons, folks, it's over. The NFC South is theirs. And that's, not to nitpick any other team, Baker Mayfield and, Tampa Bay, Bryce Young, et cetera, et cetera. The Saints are absolute dumpster fire, I will say that. But the Falcons are going to have a really interesting offseason. And so let's talk about the draft a little bit. But one thing I did just want to say is I was reading it. One of the reasons I made this video is I was reading an article, I think it was from Bleacher Report, and they were saying like the best case scenario for the Atlanta Falcons is signing Ryan Tannehill. That would pretty much piss me off unless they draft a quarterback at pick number 8, which they'll probably be able to select a J.J. McCarthy. They'll probably be able to select a Bo Nix, Michael Penix. Depending on who you ask, that could be early, that could be late. The draft boards, the mock drafts, all that stuff's going to change because we haven't even really gotten into the draft festivities quite yet. But the only reason Ryan Tannehill should be signed from the Atlanta Falcons. And the best case scenario is if you don't trade for Justin Fields, you don't get Kirk Cousins, and you draft a quarterback at 8, or, you make a trade or whatever, you draft a later round quarterback. But I would say if Ryan Tannehill is the Atlanta Falcons starting QB next season, that's certainly not the best case. I would question what they're trying to establish over there. But, if they've got a young rookie quarterback who, was struggling in preseason and training camp and whatever, I would understand that. Ryan Tannehill's a solid veteran, but he's not a quarterback one for the Atlanta Falcons because, folks, they have bigger fish to fry. There are Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields. We talked a lot about Justin Fields in our Falcons video from last week. Just the playmaking that a guy like Justin Fields would bring to an already top 5 rushing attack in the NFL, it would be unbelievable. I mean, you give Justin Fields on this team Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, probably another wide receiver, another type of playmaker, whether that's through the draft or free agency, it would just be a game changer. So in my opinion, if the Atlanta Falcons land Kirk Cousins, or even if you give up like a 3rd and a 5th round pick for Justin Fields, watch out. But you should be watching out for this team in general. Now, they do have some holes that they need to fill. You got Calais Campbell hitting free agency. You got Bud Dupree hitting free agency. Matt Collins, Jeff Okudah, Keith Smith. You got some guys hitting free agency. But for the most part, I just need an edge rusher. I don't think they'll be selecting Dallas Turner at pick number 8, but who knows? Maybe they could. It's not a great edge rushing draft, so I will just throw that caveat out there. If they were to acquire Kirk or Justin Fields prior to the NFL draft and then they select Dallas Turner at pick number 8, I would be a fan of that. Wide receiver and a cornerback, I do think Jesse Bates looks phenomenal. What a free agent acquisition last season. But nonetheless, they definitely need some more cornerback depth, as pretty much every team in the NFL could use. So I would expect maybe a 3rd, 4th, 5th round draft pick, a nice cornerback being selected, some type of over there. But to me, wide receiver is one of those positions that they just need to look into, whether it's through the draft or free agency or through the trades. Their top 4 receivers last season, once again, take it with a grain of salt. Take the actual statistics with a grain of salt, because Drake London, 905 yards, like, the dude's a stud. He's a stud wide receiver in this league. They just need a more consistent, competent quarterback. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, Bijan Robinson, those were their top 4 receivers. All 4 of them had over 400 receiving yards this past season, but that's when things get ugly. And, Bijan's obviously a running back, and Kyle Pitts and Jonnu are tight ends. So they just need more depth. They need more talent at the wide receiver position. Matt Collins was, an interesting acquisition last year, but he was not a needle mover. He was never going to be. Just 18 catches for 251 yards. And after that, things do get extremely desperate. So, honestly, at this point, I think they'll probably address that through the draft and through free agency. At pick number 8, the Falcons just have a ton of options, but first and foremost, guys, I need a quarterback. And if it's Kirk Cousins, it's probably game over. If it's Kirk Cousins and another wide receiver, watch out for the Atlanta Falcons. But nonetheless, watch out for Atlanta. But folks, let me know your thoughts on Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.